Well, today is March 8th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 84, but something kind of funky just happened, right? So I was in the middle of the cast, and something was really sort of going nutty with the viewer count. Everything was sort of going like up and down, and all of a sudden it froze, and I was kind of like, what's going on with that, right? And all of a sudden, when I actually went to livestream.com/StriderDoom, it says, your thing no longer exists. The URL could not be found, and I was like, uh-oh, that's not so good, you know. So, well, after a little bit of drooling, let's go ahead and do this over again. Sincere apologies to everyone who was watching this. Yeah, so you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and splice the old thing back with this one, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right back into the thick of things, heading right back. So I sincerely hope that there wasn't anything too weird. But yeah, like, so that's kind of funky how that happened. But anyways, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and restart this replay thanks to this scroll button. Since I'm probably going to remove the first portion, what I wanted to say is that in yesterday's episode of the Day 9 Daily, we noticed that, I'm getting flustered, my goodness. Yeah, in the previous episode of the Day 9 Daily, I mentioned that I had a StarCraft notebook. I'm just going to go ahead and come back and just show it off again, because I'm very proud of my StarCraft notebook, you know, and I write things in it. See, I have very pretty writing and everything, and I color code it. So that way I can come back and I can get notes in that and see what the timings of things are, because it's really difficult to keep all these timings in your head. You can say them to yourself, and it might feel like, you know, yeah, I remember that, I got that, it's no problem. But the issue comes when you're not actually implementing what you told yourself in the very next game. So, for instance, some guy might be like, oh yeah, I need to take a probe, I need to put it here if I want to spot his overlord at this one point in time. And that's great to be able to identify that sort of stuff, but unless you're about to try it in the next game, it's so easy for that to just leak out of your brain and for you to never remember it ever again. So if you write them down, you can start accumulating things. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewatch this replay, and we're going to think about all the things that we could write down that are useful timings for us to know. So right off the bat, there's already little things I'm noticing, right? So he's getting a 9 pylon. What food should Zerg be at when I'm getting 9 pylon, right? He should be at 10 food, and his overlord should have just started around the same time that my pylon is about halfway done. Hey, we have a little bit of knowledge, right? This is something that we mentioned a little bit beforehand, right? Before the stream seemed to have crashed on my end. There we go, right, yeah, look, here's the gateway going down on 10 food, right? It has just begun, and what's happened in Zerg's base? Well, his overlord has just hatched. And we like this bit of information because it means we know that there is about what our opponent is doing, assuming he's going for something more economically oriented, right? We have a pretty solid understanding of where he's at. He could, of course, be like 9 pooling or 10 pooling or 8 pooling or whatever sort of pooling early we're going to see is common. But aside from those situations, we already have a pretty good sense of what is going down. So the Protoss is going ahead and just warp gating away. Alright, cool. The Protoss player is just now building an assimilator right on top. So what's going down? Hey, it looks like that if we gate on 10 and assimilator on 12, the Zerg will have just been getting ready to pool on 13. And pooling on 13 is about the earliest economic pool that you'll see right now. People are pretty much going for 14 hatch at their expansion. Some people are going pool first, but to be very economically focused, they'll get like pool on 15 or 16, a really late pool, so that way they have enough money for the Roach Warren and the Queen right when the pool finishes. This is a little bit, this is like a Queen rush, I would call this, because we're actually going to see the Zerg make a lot of drones. But this is about as early as you see players pool with the intention of getting a fast Queen. And I think that's super useful to note, given this build order that's going on from Protoss, right? Just being able to identify that is significant. And what we're actually going to see is the Protoss player goes Phoenix in both games, which is the reason I specifically chose this series, because I'm having a hell of a lot of trouble getting Phoenixes to work properly. So we're going to see how it works out, make some considerations. So here he is, he's putting in stuff into the gas, and okay, so the gateway finishes. So right when the gateway finishes, what is the status that Zerg is at? His pool isn't even done yet by the time my gateway finishes. That is so reassuring for me to think about, right? If he's doing some sort of super early pool, I might have to be aware of that. Because probably a critical decision right now is, should I make a cybernetics core, which is actually what we see the Protoss go ahead and do, or should I be making a zealot to deal with some sort of 10 pool? Well, there's a few things to note right now. There's a probe that's about halfway across the map. I bet you that right now is when we'd see those Zerglings. I'd have to double check that. I want to write down 2 minutes and 30 seconds in my notebook as a timing I want to remember. But I really want to be able to see when I end up encountering a 10 pool. What sort of adjustment would I make to that? Well, if I've already built my cybernetics core, what I'll probably end up doing is just chrono boosting this zealot, and I'll make sure I have enough chrono boost. So you see this chrono boost that's being spent right now on this probe? Probably want to save that until I have a super good idea of what's going on. And there appears to be live stream issues once again. I'm just going to briefly pause and come back over here, and I'm going to unmute the chat to briefly see if anything's going on. It might be that there is a cat with the stream. I don't really know too much of what's going on. Alright, it seems to be working absolutely 100% okay. I think for some people it's getting out of sync then. So, weird. It's taking people a long time to get in here. It seems like my stream is getting maxed out at about 600 viewers, which is a lot lower than usual, but, you know, no big deal. This will be up on the on-demand. No problem. So, hey, cool, look at this. Look at this stream, or excuse me, not this stream. Look at this build by Zerg, right? He's getting his Roachworn and his Queen right away because the pool has just finished. Pretty standard by the Zerg player, but it's good to note that, you know, Cybernetics Core, when it's about halfway finished, seems like about the time that this pool is beginning. And there's so much information I've just said right now, right? We've hit the 3-minute mark, and yet I've done a lot of pausing to go back here and to make sure everything is relating back to the Protoss's build in some sort of specific fashion. And obviously, you can do this in the reverse order. So, for instance, if you're Zerg, you know that right when you're starting your Queen and your Roach Warren, that's about the time that your Protoss would be getting close to getting a Cybernetics core. And this is a pretty damn fast Cybernetics core, too. This is a gateway on 10. There's a lot of considerations that can be made in this game. I'm still feeling a little uncomfortable about how long it's taken these Zealots to get out. But, you know, I'm not going to be too horrifically concerned about that for this game. It's one of those things that I'd be, you know, aware of in other games. You know, because a lot of times when people play, they're pretty naive with, excuse me, they end up being pretty naive with what they're doing. You know, they'll start making Zealots. And I think it's important to do that just to say, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I'm going to do it. You know, like, well, I'm making Zealots to block my ramp, and I made the Cybernetics core before I made any Zealots. Is that okay or not? Well, I can think of some tests I would run, but right now I haven't encountered anything that would make me think otherwise, so I'm just going to do it. Be very skeptical before you go, oh yeah, this is the best thing in the universe. Oh, look at how fast this stargate is, you know. It takes quite a lot of repetition to be able to identify if anything's going horrifically wrong. And continuing to scout around and about. Alright, cool. Let's see if we can get some times here. So this is one, right now is what makes me just love this replay rewind, because I used to have to rewatch replays a ton just to be able to get these timings down. So let's see, Zerg's at around 18 food. So what happens right when this expansion goes down? So if we look at Zerg's base, it looks like Zerg got the Queen really fast and got the Roach Warren really fast right after he got a spawning pool. Hasn't put any guys in the extractor yet. I think that's a little bit of a misstep. And then he's expanding around 18. This kind of build order from Zerg seems like it wouldn't really have that many big deviations early on. Still probably going to be getting the Queen and the Roach Warren almost no matter what. So when our hatch starts, what's going on in the Protoss base? Hatch starts at the exact same time as the Stargate starts. Perfect. Getting a little bit of information. And of course, we're going to be going back and forth in this several times. We're going to be just double checking to see if our timings are okay throughout this entire process. Excuse me. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, I have some sort of feverish sore throat thing going on. I mean, it would take a lot more than a fever to prevent Day 9 from doing casting on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, I just figured, in case you're wondering why I have that manly, hoarse rasp, it's because I'm diseased, not because I'm actually manly. So one thing that's nice about this build, this isn't so much a timing thing, this is just a sort of what I like about the build thing. Because we got gas a little bit late, we can't do constant roach productions, so in a sense we're forced to make some drones because we have these larvae and extra minerals lying around but no gas. So that seems pretty good, right? We're getting some roaches, but we're not over-committing to roaches on accident. The fact that we restricted ourselves in this build is helping us out quite a lot. So still more gateways, or excuse me, more zealots being built. One question I would have, again, not timing related. Is this zealot okay, or should I be getting a sentry? Should I be getting a stalker? Part of me prefers a stalker, just so I can go over here and kill off some of these overlords, kind of get them to go back, have a little bit more control over the ramp. The stalker can still sort of participate in this wall off here, this block, but it can also shoot down, so it might deter things from coming up a little bit. And my question would be, am I really that low on gas? Well, maybe. I mean, my Stargate only just finished and it has 126 gas, so I would have needed to gas here quite a bit earlier. So maybe this Zealot's okay. I think I eventually want to get a Zealot, though. And this is obviously really bad to let Zerglings up here. Don't do that, and we have a Stargate coming out right now. So, very important timing for Zerg. You really want to know about when this Stargate finishes. So that way you know when the Phoenix is coming. This is exactly what you do in Zerg vs. Protoss and StarCraft 1, right? You say, gee, when could the Corsair possibly be coming out? I definitely need to be worried about the Corsair. So that way you want to know when the Stargate starts, when the Stargate finishes, and when the Phoenix starts and finishes. So we know that the Stargate started right when our hatchery went down. What other sign can we get? Well, it looks like 26 food is about when we're starting to know this. And you know, notice how I'm forming these relationships between whatever I think is most useful. So, oh, there we go. The viewer count suddenly has jumped up by about 200 in the last 2 seconds. So hopefully these live stream issues have been sorted out. I'll go over those in just a bit. But anyways, so notice how I'm making these relationships in pretty much any fashion, right? I'm doing whatever is most useful. You can use food as the counter for it. You can do something like say, okay, when I'm at 18 food, he's starting his Stargate. When I'm at 14 food, that's when his cybernetics core is finishing. And that's okay to do. But you don't have to do that, right? I use crazy stuff all the time. So a few things that I'm doing right now. I said that this hatchery started the same time that the Stargate started. Oh, cool, right? That seems like a pretty good metric. Or right now, as I poked around in this base, I was trying to find something to link this Stargate finishing to. And, yeah, this food's at 26 to 26. I could do that, but I'm getting supply blocked. So, hey, why not say when my third Overlord finishes? That seems pretty good, right? Or, excuse me, my fourth Overlord finishes, because, yeah, there are the 3 Overlords just sort of hanging out there. When my fourth Overlord finishes, when I'm at about 26 food, that's when this Stargate's going to be up. One of the most reliable things to link up to is the extractor, because assuming you aren't pulling any guys out of the extractor, you always know that this has been a constant rate all game long. Sometimes you'll get rushed early, or you'll lose some Zerglings, or maybe he'll get in there and kill off 2 drones, and all your timing will get screwed up if you're relying too heavily on this food marker up here in the top right. But the extractor is so reliable. So hell, why not? When I'm at 2400 gas, his Stargate has just finished, and he's going to begin making a Phoenix. I mean, alternatively, you can just your opponent can just be horrible, and you can just walk Zerglings directly into his base and see exactly what's going on. But still, it's nice to be aware of all these possibilities without having to scout the opponent. So this is what I'm actually going to do. Let's actually go into the Zerg cam, right? And let's rewind back a little bit. I want to rewind back just a little bit here. So this is a Zerg camera, right? Let's just see how our timings feel right now. Okay, so I know that right about now, my Protoss opponent should be starting his pylon. If I go hit F1, yep, he's starting his gateway right when my Overlord finishes. I misspoke. Yeah, when the Overlord starts is when his pylon starts. When my Overlord finishes is when his gateway starts. So I'm actually going to speed it up here a little bit. And oh, here's some more useful information that I actually didn't quite get the chance to look at. So we're seeing this Protoss player send his probe out about after the time that he builds his assimilator. So I should know when that scouting probe is coming. So for instance, the fact that my drone got the chance to see him right now gives me a hint that he might not actually be two-gating me. Lots of cool stuff's already going on, and going back to the Xenowera cam, let's just speed things up a little bit, just to double check ourselves. Doop-de-doop-de-doo. So, okay, so I'm going to start my queen and my roach warren. What do I know at this point in time? Okay, start the queen, dude. Come on, Xenowera, don't make me look bad. Okay, so right now, that cybernetics core should be a little past halfway done. Let's go to the Protoss cam. Great, cybernetics core is a little after halfway done. And notice how Zerg hasn't even needed to scout this yet, just is being aware of this. So, in a little bit, actually, I'm going to go to the everyone cam. If we look over here at, like, right, let's actually speed this up to right now, and build the Stargate. Let's speed it up a little bit, just because I want to build the Stargate. Great, Stargate's going down. What are we thinking as the Zerg right now? This is where you start getting into all these various deviations that you could be worrying about. If you get overwhelmed by all these deviations, just break it down into really simple things. So for instance, I saw him get a cybernetics core. Whew, I'm just going to stop thinking right there. There are three paths that I can basically think of. A fast Stargate, a fast Robo, or Templar Tech. I think that is, about a reasonable set of three. Sure, you could worry also about him going for some sort of Stalker, Sentry, Zealot push, but if three is enough for your head right now, if you're already feeling a little mentally overwhelmed by those three, just ignore the fact that he could be going for Zealot, Stalker, Sentry, Warpgate stuff, right? Just say to yourself, I am going to lose if he does that, and just not worry about it for now. So what we do right now is, if we're in Zerg situation, is we say, okay, if I start my hatchery right now, he could possibly be doing a Stargate, or he could be making a robotics facility right now. And again, part of the reason why repetition is so good is we get the chance to identify all these possibilities definitively. So right now we do know that because our hatchery just started, he is either starting a Stargate in the back of his base, or he's going for some sort of robo facility. Just two possibilities, two distinct, clear possibilities. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to say, well, what if he does something weird, like he goes for some sort of warp prism rush opening, or he could go for immortals, or he could go for carriers, blah, blah, blah. You know, just keep it really simple. Stargate or Robo Bay. What can hold off any early effects of those until I know what's up? So let's actually just keep this on the Zerg cam for a little bit. So let's speed things up. And I might want to be checking my gas. Okay, when that gets to just under 2,400, I know that his Phoenix will about be started right then. Ignore these Zerglings once again. Let's just focus on these structures. These are sorts of things I'm thinking is Zerg, right? I'm going to get a few roaches because, you know, he does have one gateway, so I need to make sure I don't die to anything silly that way. But I'm not going to get too many. I'm going to be still making drones and everything. And right about the time that my hatchery finishes, let's go to the everyone cam. It looks like his Stargate is almost done making a Phoenix. So this is actually one of the most important points, is when the reveal happens, right? It's when you get to know what exactly you're up against. And every build should have something that's good against all possibilities until the reveal of what his strategy is. So we're going to go ahead and resume it. So I actually want to keep an eye just here. So look, the Phoenix just finished. When does this reveal happen? When does Zerg definitively know that Phoenixes are coming? And again, we're kind of pretending these Zerglings never got into the base in the first place. So, okay, so we see a Phoenix coming. And the reveal happens right about now, right? We can conceive it being off by a little bit, you know, for instance, if an Overlord wasn't here and we had to wait for the Phoenix to get from here to here. But it's about the same time. So what are we noticing here? Well, I'm about 30 food. Right when I transferred the queen at some point, right around the time the queen gets to this hatchery is about the time the Phoenix is going to get to my base. So in this build order that I'm doing as Zerg, if I'm at like 32 food, somewhere between 32 and 35 food, and I haven't seen a Phoenix, you know what I do? I just say, he's not going Phoenixes, right? He's doing some sort of immortal rush. So I really need to begin preparing for that sort of thing. To go back to StarCraft 1, the three possibilities I was worried about when a Protoss player fast gas is if he was going for fast Corsairs, if he was going for some sort of fast Zealot leg push, if he was going for some sort of Templar expand, or if he was going for some sort of Dragoon Reaver push. And I had all these timings set up, and the last one to ever come out, the slowest of those four options, was the Dragoon Reaver push. The Corsair was generally the fastest one. That's when you really saw everything that was going on. So what would happen is I would wait a little bit, and I would see, okay, I'm waiting for a Corsair, I'm waiting for a Corsair. Oh my god, I haven't seen a Corsair. So then I would immediately take Zerglings and rush to the front of his base, if they weren't there already. And I would like count to 10, and if by that time I didn't see any cannons or anything moving down his ramp, I would go, okay, well he's not Templar expanding, that's for certain. And if I waited another 10 seconds or so and he didn't move out, I would go, okay, well he's definitely not going for some sort of Zealot push. I know for a fact that my opponent is going Dragoon Reaver. And then it would generally be a little bit longer of a period of time, but more than enough for me to not expand somewhere else that would die. It would be more than enough for me to not make some extra drones thinking I could get away with it. A lot of super useful information comes from the reveal. Make sure you know what the reveal of all the different kinds of strategies are for whatever your build is. And, you know, if you're doing varying strategies, make sure you get like sort of a benchmark, you know. Well, I'm gassing at about the same time in all my builds, so when the extractor says about 2250, that's when I know he can actually be getting Phoenixes, you know. Make sure you can find the consistency between your own builds and what he's doing. Now, I've been talking almost exclusively about timings, but I do want to talk a little bit about Phoenixes. Phoenixes are sweet. If any of you have seen the White Ra vs. Kaz game from the Zotac Cup, I mean, it's just cool, right? We got to see White Ra get like 8 Phoenixes, 9, 10 Phoenixes, and just run around the map, go to an expansion, and lift the drones up one at a time like popcorn and just, you know, pop them one at a time. And that's cool, right? That seems neat, especially the idea of, oh, I can lift the queen up and cut Zerg's macro by more than half, actually. But it feels like Phoenixes are not so good until you get to a critical number, and we're going to see a little bit of that in this game. So he's shooting things away, and it appears I accidentally kicked out my speaker cord, so everyone please enjoy this Phoenix while I plug it back in, because I would love to be able to hear things. Ah, fantastic. So the Phoenix is wandering around, and part of me, you know, part of what Protoss is doing is just scouting to make sure he knows what's up in the Zerg's base. You have to be aware of this timing regardless. You know, you can see the layer right now, but you need to kind of go, okay, I see the layer, I know he's going layer, and I'm at about 40 food, so this seems pretty normal. Oh, this is so awesome that this robotics facility is coming up, because this will help us with timing in just a little bit. But part of the reason why it's important to note this, even though you get the chance to see it, is because you want to see it and say, okay, I'm at about 40 food, because if you saw the layer and it was done already, you'd go, huh, he must have rushed for layer, and you can kind of go back in time and think, and this generally you'll do this after the game, you go back in time and you think, well, if he went for a layer that quickly, he had to have sacrificed roaches early on. He had to have been getting tons of economy. He had to have been getting that gas really, really early on. So then you can start to think about more vulnerabilities. But since I want to think mostly about timing, look at this robotics facility. So let's go back and do a test. I want to, remember how I was making a big deal about the reveal of a stargate? Well, how long does it take for a stargate to finish? And how long does it take for a phoenix to finish? Let's actually, we're gonna skip everything else in the replay. We're gonna rewind in a little bit, but I want to see if we have enough time to see an immortal get built. I sure hope so. I mean, there's death and destruction going on all over the place. Please build an immortal. Please, please build an immortal. I would love it if you built an immortal. Well, darn. We'll actually get to see this in the next game, I believe, but let's go ahead and rewind. So I was talking about the timing of a stargate versus a robotics facility, and when on Earth, as a Zerg player, do I get to know if he's doing one or the other? So this is a test that I do all the time, right? This stargate got started at exactly 3:48. So I'm going to speed it up. And I want to see exactly when it finishes. Started at 3:48. Finishes at, looks like it was about 1 minute to build that stargate. Cool. So it's going to be building and building, and you know, part of it you can actually go into here, but I have a little bit easier of a time, you know, going through it the other way. Actually, does it have build times here? I don't know. Maybe we can actually see the build times right here. That might actually speed things up a little bit. Yeah, so we can actually see that the robotics facility takes a little bit longer of a time to build. But how long does a Phoenix take to build? Oh, Phoenix takes about 45 seconds. So we know that around 32 food, we're going to see this Phoenix get to our base, right? As Zerg, see Zerg's at about 31 food. At 30, you know, some stuff was dying. And about 32, somewhere between 32 and 35, we see the Phoenix. So great. So we want to compare that to Immortals, because we might be very well worried about an Immortal push. So here's our robotics facility, which, as we know, takes just a little bit longer than a Phoenix. And then we're going to pause it right now. Okay, so we see that the Phoenix takes 45 seconds, the Immortal takes 40 seconds. So great, they take about the same time to build. It takes almost the same time to get a Stargate and a Phoenix built as it takes to build a robotics facility and then get an Immortal. So what does this mean? If at 32 or 30 food, I don't see a Phoenix wandering around here, maybe around 35 food, I still haven't seen a Phoenix, I know that he's going Immortals, or even better, around 30 food. Let's actually rewind this once again. So we want to see once again, when on Earth was that Stargate finished building? So we can pretend almost like this is a robotics facility with an Immortal hanging out in it. So we see the Stargate going. So again, pretend that this is an Immortal, because Stargate plus Phoenix has the same build time as Immortal plus robotics facility. So that Phoenix just popped out. So if this was instead an Immortal being built here, he would have rallied it to the ramp probably around, yeah, just shy of 30 food. So actually, just powering for a little bit with this build, and then sending a Zergling out right to the front right about now, I would be able to see an Immortal, which would probably give me plenty of time to build the Zerglings or other defenses necessary to hold that Immortal off. Now, let's go ahead and just finish up this replay just pretty normally, instead of going, you know, too more heavy into the timings, because we can see a whole bunch of link-ups going on here. There's already a lot of useful information that's been gleaned out of this one. But then I'm going to do a comparison of this game to the second game that these two players played. Yeah, so he gets to poke around a little bit, and the Zerg player, you know, he took the roaches and he broke the ramp, so we can start seeing a deviation. Oh yeah, if I see Phoenixes, just take my first 3 roaches and just go attack. If I don't see a Phoenix, just hang back, because there's an Immortal coming, so I better make some Zerglings. So lifting them up, you know, that's fine and fancy and all and well, but Zerglings just run up, clean things up, and a little bit of a silly loss. Now, timing aside, strategy-wise, this is part of the reason why, whoopsie daisies, why I'm not the biggest fan of one-base Phoenix right now, because it takes quite a lot of Phoenixes to really get effective off the bat. So we can clearly see that, you know, it's a lost game. So we're going to do one more game after this. We've been going for about, well, theoretically we've been going for 45 minutes, but there were server issues at the start. So by the way, since we have about 1,000 people in here right now, there's a few things I want to get out of the way. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/day9tv, D-A-Y, number 9TV, all one word. The second thing is, what was the second thing? I think Ghosted Gamers is still doing their annual community award thing. So if you want to vote for me, you totally should. You can go to ghostofgamers.net to do that. And the other thing is that for any of you who are having trouble joining, for some reason, for a big number of people, if you went to livestream.com/StriderDoom, aka what you're watching right now, it said URL cannot be found. That's actually why I stopped the stream, is that I went, what's up with my stream? And I went and checked, and it's like, you don't exist. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I exist. So it's a good thing that seems to be going quite well at this point in time. So we're watching yet another game. We're watching same two players, Zenio Wera against against the Yellow Protoss. Whoa, getting messaged on AIM. Gonna close it down because people are messaging me. Alright, fantastic. And everything seems to be going pretty normally once again. We have this player. Oh, whoopsie daisies. Hope that doesn't cause any permanent damage. We're going to see him do this gateway on 10 thing again. I'm real curious about this one. This is a very interesting decision because most players are actually getting their gateway around 13. Players really love the fact that they can just constantly chrono boost probes out. But this actually, I think, is a very, very interesting choice for two reasons. First of all, we get a cybernetics core very quickly. But also, it's okay to save chrono boost a little bit because chrono boost only lasts 20 seconds, which is a very short amount of time. So that means we can chrono boost many times in a row and burn it down very, very, very quickly. And also this placement's good because we get a nice little choke established there. So we're going to see the Zerg do pretty much the same thing. Notice that this Overlord finished about the same time that this gateway started. There's another one of those useful timings. So we see the assimilator start, and I bet the Zerg's spawning pool is at about 430 or so hit points. 231, alright, I'm awful. I wanted to be clairvoyant, but, you know, my timing's off a little bit. Oh, I know where I got that number. That's about the time that the gateway finishes. Well, let's see if I'm relatively close at all. Yeah, when it's, about 580, you know, potato. But, you know, you get the idea, right? It's useful that I made these declarations because I got to go, oh, actually that's way off. And then I got to adjust it a little bit. Oh, cool. I didn't know that in reality, when I started this assimilator, I didn't even need to worry about any Zerglings coming yet. In fact, when my gateway finishes, the pool isn't even up yet, and this is a 13 pool. This is not the latest pool in the world. Pretty quick. And also we're seeing the Protoss kind of forced to make some Zealots early. So we're going to talk a little bit less about timing, still quite a bit about timing this game. But a little bit more about the strategy. The issue I saw in the other game is that the Protoss just got his front broken really, really early on, and the Phoenixes, even though he got them quickly, couldn't really do anything. So I'm starting to think that maybe you should favor defense a little bit more, because then, you know, you need to stay alive in the early game, but once you get a critical number of Phoenixes, it's a huge push back against the Zerg, and we're going to see that in this game. So it makes me not so concerned that these Zealots are a little bit delayed, because we don't need to get Phoenixes fast. Fast Phoenixes aren't key. It's a lot of Phoenixes that are key. And since we need a lot of the unit, we need to make sure we don't die until that time. So that's, I mean, notice how simply that's stated. Do I need it fast, or do I need a lot of them? Make sure that after you've declared that the rest of your build sort of is logically consistent with that. So we're going to see some slightly different timings. The Protoss made his core after he made that first Zealot. So we see that the Queen just hatched. So cool. What am I saying now is Zerg? Alright, well, at 18 food, this timing is almost identical to the last game, where at around 18 food, when the hatchery goes down, cool, the Stargate's still coming up. So, alright, cool. Given a slight rearrangement of this build order, we know that right now at 18 food is about the earliest that a Stargate could possibly come out. Not that it definitively is, but it's the earliest that could be happening. So, cool, we see the Stargate going down. Let's think about the timings we learned from last game. So, Roaches, first Roach seems to be about finished around the time that this Stalker's finishing. So cool, I know I don't need to worry about Roaches until this point. It's okay that I have just Zealots to defend. Not too big a deal there. Yep, there's my first Roach. And all these timings are super, super useful after you have gotten a good sense of what strategy you're trying to do is. This is all about repetition. So that's part of the reason why whenever anyone says, how do I get better at the fastest? The answer is pick one matchup on one map and just play one strategy over and over and over and over again. And even with an extremely small sample size, even with just 10 games, you can get so much information, right? You learn all these sorts of new things, especially if you do it 5 games, stop and analyze your replays ultra slow the way I'm doing right now. I mean, you can get so much information about ways to adjust things. So cool, we're seeing this little stalker dude do some damage. Seeing some more zealots pop out. So the reason we do all this stuff is we might think to ourselves, oh man, I really need to have cannons before I get that stargate up because I'm worried about roaches. It's like, well, no, you don't. I mean, he got roaches pretty damn fast. I mean, he got them right when his pool finished, and he only has 2 roaches. You're fine. Don't worry about it. It's cool. It's good. Just calm down. Like, it is completely fine to be in the situation that you are in as Protoss right now. Maybe if you're having trouble with roach rushes, like you're losing to them when you do this build, you would say something like, well, based on all the timing I've seen, right before my Stargate finishes, I need to get a forge or something like that. And notice how the Protoss who is stockpiling up on those chrono boosts is having no issue whatsoever spending it right away. Hey, look, some Zerglings at the front. We see some roaches. We're thinking about it, but alas, they are being pushed back. A lot more units being placed at the front, a lot more than the previous game. So I'm liking this. And once again, we're going to see that fast phoenixes don't do so much. They're not the scariest thing in the world. So, we have a phoenix. What did we say is Zerg? Yeah, between that 32 and 35 range, that's when we should be seeing a fast phoenix. And as you all know, 34 oftentimes lies between 32 and 35, so we're feeling pretty content with ourselves at this point in time. Yeah, just getting yet another layer. Oh, cool, look, this Zerg player is doing the identical timing with that layer as with last time. Cool, we want to make sure our Phoenix tries to spot that. So, man, that took a long time to kill that guy off, but killing an Overlord's always good. So this is the one thing I am very concerned about with Phoenixes, is that they die very, very, very quickly. You basically just get another queen, and then it's pretty much your poor man's defense against Phoenixes for a really long time. We see Warp Gate going down, just you doing very sort of standard transition, just going into some sort of big-ish ground army. And I also want to note, what we're going to see is so similar to what happens in StarCraft 1. It just cracks me up, right? Ever seen Corsair into very small one-gate push? That's exactly what we're going to see now. And I even really, really, really love this specific unit composition, where we end up seeing 3 Stalkers and 3 Zealots move out. Still going to be making Phoenixes. Alright, I've watched this replay before. I know you make more Phoenixes. Well, we'll come back. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So taking them. Attack. So we're seeing right now that Zerg's comfortable as can be, right? He has, if we just go to the unit counting station, he's already matched with his opponent in terms of drones. He has 2 queens up. He has an expansion. His layer is now finished. He can get Hydralisks. He can start vomiting creep here, which he actually doesn't do this game, but I really think he should have. So that way he has more mobility. And the Protoss, he's killed off an Overlord, and that's about it. But what we're going to see is that Zerg starts having a little more trouble, and then just suddenly, bam, Zerg just like folds and collapses very quickly. So that's something about this strategy that makes me feel a little bit, ugh. So why do I like this attack? This is a little bit more about thinking of the timing of things. So when did this attack start to move out? Let's actually rewind here just so we can establish a timing. I mean, the easiest way to state this timing is whenever this Stalker finishes. It so happens that it's a little bit before 50 food. Looks like it's around, 46 food, 48 food, something like that. Around 50 food we end up moving out. Why do I like it? Because, as we'll see, bam, the layer just finished. It just finished. The layer just finished. What does that mean? Hydralisks are really good, and I could have only just started the Hydralisk den right now. Look at that. There is no way that Zerg possibly could have had Hydralisks faster. So the defense is just going to be with the starting set of drones and roaches. And these 2 queens, obviously. Cool timing, very cool. And of course Zerg needs to be aware of this, that right when his layer finishes, there's a timing that's going to give him some trouble. So why not throw down a creep colony when your layer's halfway done? Or as they're called in this game, spine crawlers. So we're starting to see a little bit of trouble with all those little queenaroos. Yeah, I mean, they get lifted up. And see, look, this is what I was talking about with that critical number of phoenixes. Yeah, they lifted up the queens, but then the queens just fell down and the phoenixes had to go away, you know? So it's like 50 energy gone, right, for just a few shots at a queen. And by the way, with 2 queens, they can do the transfusion with one another, so if you ever see him lifting up one of your queens and he's doing a whole bunch of damage to you, you just make sure you use that transfusion, which gives 125 health to that nearby unit, which would be the queen that's floating up in the air. And I'm sort of ignoring this little Junkaroo going on here, because, yeah, it's neat that all this stuff was able to happen, but what we're most concerned about is timings and how they relate back and forth to one another. So let's actually rewind just a little bit here. So this is right when this push arrived. You know, now that I think of it, maybe we didn't need the creep colony or the spine crawler. We instead can just get a bunch of Zerglings and push with our initial set of roaches. I personally prefer the spine crawler choice just because I like getting more drones, but as we're going to see here, now I want to look at this battle. Given this timing, we were never in that big of a threat as Zerg, and we're able to put a whole bunch of counter pressure on the opponent. And look at that. Easy as can be. A lot of zealots hanging out back here. Kinda dislike that a little bit. Would have liked to see those be a little bit more aggressive. Even if you have units here that are like retreating, you know, and you just intend for them to come all the way back to your base, it's really important to take reinforcements, go meet this army, and then retreat back with everything. Joining up with your army is real key. Okay, now look at this. So, let's just describe what's happened. Protoss has lost his entire first attack force. His phoenixes have pretty much been repelled, and to this date, have only really killed like an overlord. They lifted up some drones here and killed like 1 or 2 of them, but other than that, nothing really. And then watch this part in the game. This is unbelievable. Once again, note that this Hydralisk Den has not been done for very long at all. It actually only just finished. If I just rewind it a little bit. Yeah, cool. Oh, I love how Replay Rewind lets me... if I select a building and rewind it, it still has that building selected. That's pretty cool. So, see, notice that this Hydralisk Den has only just now been started. That's why we like pushing out as Protoss at that time. So, what else are we seeing here? Yeah, so this is starting to make me go, oh, I think I understand Phoenixes a little bit better now. I don't think the Protoss needs to have any intention to do serious damage until right about now. I want to talk about that, because I think that's sort of an unusual concept. A lot of people are like, well, I want to do as much damage as I can at all points. And yeah, I mean, I know that's true, but you need to know when, like, the critical strikes are, you know, when the killing blow is supposed to occur for your build. Terran vs. Zerg in StarCraft 1. Sure, the Terran's going to move out with an initial medic marine group, and he's going to go check out the front. He might run up and shoot at the Sutton colonies and then back up, but most of the time he's going to come home and there's not really going to be anything that comes from it. And then he'll move out once again, maybe a little bit later, trying to control some expansions, but still sort of moving around, but not really committing to anything. The thing that's supposed to kill the Zerg player is when Terran gets about 4 tanks and a science vessel and then pushes with everything. That's when Terran goes for the jugular. And this is what's cool about seeing this Phoenix build. This seems like the right time to do this huge attack, because right now we've put pressure on the Zerg. He's been having to use his queens for defense instead of macroing. Look at this, 120 energy on the queen. That's so much. And the Hydralisk Den is not quite letting us do anything yet. We see a Hydralisk just started here. We see a Hydralisk just started here. And the 2 queens are going to come to defend. And then just look at this. This is like unbelievable. And up you go. Lifting up both of them, which is super good. One just to negate the usefulness of the queen, and the other you're actually targeting. And lifting them up back again. Decimates the Zerg economy. And then look. And a Hydralisk pops. Look, that's the first time that Hydralisk got to pop out. Love that timing. Meanwhile, oh my god, Stalker is an immortal. Seems good. Yeah, see, look, this is like the sudden explosion timing of this Phoenix play. Because, again, these Phoenixes were not really useful until there were about 5 of them, where I could actually lift a queen up and kill it, whereas we're seeing with the Hydralisks, lift up those key units and kill them. Because, to be honest, Immortal Stalker Zealot is just going to demolish roaches and do pretty damn well against Zerglings as well. But in particular, the roaches are what's going to fall fast. I mean, any number of Immortals is going to make roaches fall really fast, especially if they're in small numbers. So these Hydralisks, which theoretically should be preventing all this stuff, look at them doing nothing. Nothing at all. Are more Phoenixes being built? No, it was just 5. It was just that key number of 5. I really think that the Protoss should have moved out by now. I think with that first Immortal you can do some junk. I don't see the purpose in getting this Robotics Bay. The Colossi are super good against killing Zerglings, but you mean you have Zealots, like a lot of Zealots as it is. It's not like you're worried about being overrun by Zerglings. And then we see some Mutalisks popping out. You know, I mean, the Mutalisks are out, and that's great, but so this is what I'm thinking. This is what's going on in my head. First of all, where the hell is the Spire? I'm curious. Oh my god, this never occurred to me. Ladies and gentlemen, get out your StarCraft notebooks and write this down. It's just like in your Zerg trick section. Once you get a layer, start vomiting onto a random part in the map and build some key tech structures there. So that way you can confuse the opponent. That's brilliant. I love that. That is so cool. Wow. Some people might say, well, wait a minute. We didn't see that many Hydralisks because he was busy getting this Spire. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that statement. I think that, yeah, we're seeing Mutalisks pop out right now, but I still think that the Phoenix timing push is going to be really strong regardless, those 5 Phoenixes. So again, I think that the Protoss is loitering a little bit longer than he should. Look, he's just hanging out. Come on, go, Protoss. Yeah, and he's moving forward. And then just watch. This is just not even close in the slightest getting in there. I'm actually going to slow this down because I like watching the battles really slowly. Look, he's even target firing with a lot of stuff. And of course, the Immortals being dumb and shooting the Zerglings. But then look when it goes and shoots at this Roach. 81 life. 25 life. It's going to be gone almost instantly. And when you have a lot of Zealots, it's very hard for small numbers of any Zerg units to do anything to you. Especially even if you just have an Immortal there. I mean, this number of Zealots is huge anyways, but the Immortal is just icing on the cake. So we got to see some really awesome timing in that first game. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the chat. I'm pretty much just going to take one question because, once again, I have a sore throat because I am ill. And also because the technical difficulties made this run just a little bit longer. But I think that is so cool how you can predict exactly what your opponent's doing and when you're going to actually see things. Just by what's going on in your own base. And get creative with your timings. Get creative with your link-ups. Figure out when he's doing stuff based on your gas, based on when you're building stuff, based on your own food and that sort of thing. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm actually going to be trying that Protoss vs. Protoss warp gate in your base, in your face stuff, right? I think that's kind of a strategy that people are freaking out quite a bit about. So of course, I must determine a way to defeat it. So you know what? Let's see here. What is the winner question? Once again, I'm just going to take one question, and you know what? This is perfect. Joel1031 says, what do you find is the best way to organize a StarCraft notebook? By matchup and specific builds and some map stuff? Do you have pages where you just write thoughts down before you test watch it a bunch? It sounds like a great idea, highly considering it myself. Alright, that's the question that will be answered, and then I'm going to need to go rest my throat. So, what I do is actually have a table of contents at the back of the book. So as I start filling up the front, once a page is full, I flip to the back and write on page 1, blah, 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 all this stuff. So I do tend to break stuff up into different things. So for instance, it'll be like Terran vs. Zerg matchup ideas. So for Terran vs. Zerg, I'll write down stuff like build order thoughts, timing stuff, what compositions I found worked really well against others, and all that stuff. There'll be pages where I'll have like a build, and what I'll do is on the left column I'll write my build order, and on the left column I'll write my build order, and on the right I'll put what all the possibilities are, and I'll put more columns if there's different things to worry about. So in that Zerg versus Protoss example, I'll have a column for if he goes for Dragoon Rush, a Dragoon Reaver push, or if he goes for Corsairs, or if he goes for Templar, and that way I can sort of get a really good idea of what's going on. And then, again, as long as I have a table of contents in the back, I'm in good shape, right? I can just go back and flip through it. It tends to be not as extremely organized as you'd want, but, you know, it's your notebook, and you'll be writing it in a lot, and it's just for you, so it's actually pretty fast. So with that, we are going to wrap up a relatively bumpy Day 9 Daily, number 84. Once again, it seemed to have crashed earlier on because of whatever reason. So that's going to go ahead and wrap things up. Yeah, should be up on the on-demand. I'll try to edit it down a little bit to make it work good, and that is going to be it. Tomorrow is the last episode for the week because I'm going to be at GDC for the remainder of the week, and hopefully, you know, these videos are enough to tide you over before I do the MLG show match once again on Saturday. So yeah, thanks so much everybody, and cheers.